And I think this leads us right into our next point, which is what's your draft philosophy? And going before today, it was O-line, it was cornerback, secondary, it was linebacker, it was tight end. Yes, definitely, maybe. But with this, Will, and I'm going to bring this to you with this news. Is edge a must? Is it edge rusher or even potential just any member of the D line, maybe the best available? Is that something that we need to seriously consider?
I think so. I'm going to preface this or say it just like I did last year with the running back. It's not going to be a position that you or me probably think we need to go after. But when we draft a Brian Robinson in the third round, when there's other needs, we don't need to blow up. As in, like, what are we doing? Because it may be this is what the team wants. This is what they're looking at. So like you're saying, they may look to say, that we need to get someone else in there, not just because one of these two bookends is leaving, but because we have to fill depth positions on players that have expiring contracts. And if you can get a guy who in your system for a year learning, obviously he's better set up for when the time comes to really needing to play him. I think this it kind of goes back to the conversation we've been having earlier this week offline is where do you value picks, and does percentage of snaps matter? When it comes to the 16th pick, when it comes to the second round pick, for the third round pick, if you were to say, yes, we need to find a replacement, and Ab was so right last week when he's like, you can't keep all four. And realistically, if they did, they're going to really have to find other ways to squeeze cash. Sam Howell, being successful is among that. If you want Chase and Montez, Sam Howell has to be a successful quarterback to have that small cap space, that type of stuff. If they can squeeze out, money in other positions. And so you're trying to think about, do you need to sign a defensive lineman who's going to be a part of a rotation this year? Or is it better to sign somebody who's going to start at cornerback, at offensive line? Where do you need to prioritize based on how many snaps is that person gonna play for you? Go ahead, I'll let you take over.
Well, no, and that's, I think, is becoming more important because the common thought or the common theme is take the best available player at said position. But I think, and I'm going to steal one of the guys that's watching, somebody, and Nell always talks about our identity. I think we do need to make specific moves. We don't need to just get the best guy. And one of the guys I'll mention is at tight end, be it Michael Mayer. And one of the things I like is not only can he stretch the defense, but he also has the ability to play on the line. He also has the ability to work in the scheme and do what's necessary for us. You know what I mean? Cody Monk, another one of those guys, is position flex, can go from different positions to position. So I think we need to focus on maybe not as much the best as it is what's the best fit, like what we been talking about. And I think that plays a major part in the draft coming up tomorrow.
I certainly agree with that. That's where the hardest thing we're talking about right now is if you were to look at what we did in free agency, where do we have a hole at starter? It's along the okay. Do you want to spend a 16th overall pick on a guard?
Right. Right.
But if you were to get a rotational piece, like look at what we did last year with Fedarian Mathis. We drafted this guy in the second round, higher than what most people thought, most of the scouts thought he was going to go. And he ended up getting hurt, so that's part of the problem. But he was going to be a part of a rotational piece to allow, if Deron Payne left, you had his replacement.
Right.
Well, we signed Deron Payne. So now we used a second round pick on a guy who's not going to play maybe 50, 60%, not even 50% of the snaps in a game. And we used a second round pick on him. Where else could we have used? Did we have a position of need that would have seen the field more? So I think that's where it's also kind of like you want to build for the future, or do you need to do what just the Pittsburgh Steelers do? When their stud linebacker leaves and signs somewhere else, guess what? Their first or second round pick replaces said stud linebacker, and they don't wait ahead. They replace when they need to. Like, is that the philosophy where it's like you can look ahead and go, Lucas Van Ness, could be somebody.
Right.
Or drafting someone to take over for these guys in the offensive line makes sense financially and from a roster construction wise. But is it more like we can kick that can down the road until we need to?
Right. And
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer either.
No, right. And see, the other thing that helps is the depth at a lot of these positions. Obviously, we know the O-line is very deep. The cornerback is very deep. So that will give you the opportunity to potentially take a chance maybe at a different spot if you feel like you can get back in there, or if there's somebody else that you feel like might fall to you, which is another thing we'll talk about, who's slipping and who's going higher and whatnot like that. So no, I think that's a great point. I think that's a great point, man.